Alien Deceptions, a suspenseful sci-fi romance thriller by Tina Marie, featuring the tantalizing Erica Jones and the mysterious Russell Hamilton. An out-of-this-world book of fiction based on years of document facts and files the government does not want you to know about, at least not yet. Alien Deceptions by Tina Marie. Available now at Amazon.com or get a signed copy at TinaMarieEntertainment.com. Get your copy now.
Restricted Airspace. Broadcasting from a secret location. A location the government insists does not exist. You're about to enter Restricted Airspace. With your host, Tina Marie. The unusual, the unexplained, the forbidden, conspiracies, the things you're not supposed to talk about. We do. This is Restricted Airspace. Now, your host, Tina Marie.
The red light is on, the studio secured, especially after last night's epic episode, Alien Turkeys vs. Tina Marie, the battle for KDWN. Hope everyone had a safe and happy Thanksgiving, and to those listening on our 50,000 watt station while shopping this Friday, well, you're just a special kind of crazy now, aren't you? Thank you to all my fans and friends of the paranormal tuning in here in Las Vegas and from across the pond in the UK. I am Tina Marie, your host and 5'10" connection to all things paranormal. This is Restricted Airspace, so sit back, enjoy the view, and remember, question everything, trust no one. Welcome to tonight's show, everybody. Just a quick reminder about a few conferences I will be speaking at next year. The Awakening Conference here in Las Vegas, March 28th through the 30th, and Paranorth, September 26th to 28th in the UK. Tickets are on sale now. So you can get, for more information, you go to my website, restrictedairspace.radio.com. I have all the links there too there. I want to send a shout out to a couple of my listeners, Bill DeMarco and Joseph Seymour, both who I had a chance to talk with last night. Thank you for those kind words and support. Appreciate it. My good friend Kevin Cook from Kevin Cook Show joins me in a bit to talk about his book, Marian Apparitions Are Real, Visits from Jesus and Mary, and a whole boat of other topics. He is just a wealth of knowledge. But first, let's send it over to Major George Filer for this week's UFO Traffic Report.
Hi, this is George Filer, wishing everybody happy Thanksgiving out there. Hope you all had a great time. In any case, I'm the regional director for the Mutual UFO Network, usually called MUFON, and we get some 350 UFOs reported each week. We had some reported recently in Nevada area on November 17th. Lights were seen hovering near Reno that was witnessed by 10 residents about 5 p.m. 3 lights were seen in the sky by people all living in different households. The objects were very bright, circular in shape, and had glowing rings around them. The center appeared to be dark and almost perfect in shape. The objects were equal distances from each other, forming a large triangle. However, they did not appear to be connected to each other. They remained stationary for almost an hour and then disappeared all at the same time. One of the observers was a former and retired Air Force member who'd been in law enforcement. He indicated he had never seen anything like that before in his life. On October 22nd and 23rd, northwest of Reno, a strange cylinder-shaped object was seen, changing colors and moving fast in the sky. 2 witnesses who were on the phone with each other and lived about 15 miles apart saw the craft appear and disappear in the west over the mountain range. They watched it hover for almost 2 hours. They called the local news station, and they said that they had other reports as well and would check it out. About 7 p.m., one of the fellow's wives and daughters also saw it move sharply to the west, very fast, and disappeared. The second night, the 23rd, the witnesses called their friends again and said the object was back. They both watched as it changed colors many times and moved very fast in no particular pattern. They again called the same station, who informed them they didn't have a chance to verify or confirm the sightings. They watched it move erratically through the sky and disappear behind the mountains. Over the fall, we got a lot of reports north of Las Vegas, reporting various fast-moving lights and triangular-shaped aircraft with a glowing fireball effect. One fellow grabbed his binoculars to look at the red lights and could see the shape of a triangle. And he said that there seemed to be craft rising from the ground or from an airport off in the distance. And these craft went into the sky and hovered and glided around in the sky like they were playing in a big playground. That, of course, is the area of Area 51. You may have seen some flights out of there.
A Marian apparition really is an event in which the Blessed Virgin Mary appeared to one or more persons, regardless of their religious faith. There have been 295 Marian apparitions investigated by the Vatican. However, out of the 295 apparitions, only 12 have ever been totally approved.
In 1968, in a town called Zaytun, the Blessed Mother actually appeared for a number of days on the top of, hovering above a church in this glowing orb with some doves around her that were flying around her, were also glowing.
1917, just outside the village of Fatima, Portugal. 3 shepherd children claim to experience visions of the Virgin Mary. According to legend, the apparition shared with them 3 cryptic secrets about mankind's dark future.
Send me an angel. Send me an angel. Right now. Right now.
If a Marian apparition takes place, the diocesan bishop would investigate that. So a local bishop investigates, and normally you'd have a number of his theologians investigate that. Perhaps the diocesan censor of books, perhaps some of the professors in the seminary.
Send me an angel. Send me an angel. Right now.
My guest tonight is Kevin Cook. Kevin is a well-respected radio personality within the paranormal and conspiracy circles and host of his own Tuesday night show on Inception Radio Network, The Kevin Cook Show. He is also a professional voiceover talent whose work has been used by several profile corporate businesses and a variety of software tools and marketing campaigns. Kevin stepped out into the world of publishing with his book, Marian Apparitions Are Real, Visits from Jesus and Mary, which got him featured on Coast to Coast with George Noory, as well as many other programs. His list of guests he's interviewed over the years is a who's in the paranormal, and it's great to have on my show tonight. Please welcome the man known to have spiritual ties to Frank Sinatra, as well as the voice to match, my good friend, Kevin Cook.
Hey, how you doing?
Pretty good, Kevin. How are you? You're up kind of late there for me, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, well, you know, it's in Central Time. It's not quite as bad as Eastern Time. It's quite a change. But, no, I really like that... the piece with the UFO traffic report. That was kind of different.
Yeah, George Filer's a good friend, and he's been doing the traffic report ever since I started doing the show, and he is part of MUFON. I met him when I was an investigator for MUFON, and he was kind enough to step up and offer to do the traffic report, which I just think is fantastic, something different. I mean, we get a lot of traffic out here in Vegas, especially tonight with the old Black Friday, and we'll see if there's any UFO traffic.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, yeah, the Southwest and the West in general are interesting places. Well, all things are interesting all over the country, but the West is kind of has a unique feel to it. It is different.
Yeah, I want to get into your book because first thing I need to say is, we've been friends for a while now, and this goes back to even when we were Majestic 12. We've been friends for a while. And what I find interesting is that, even though we have different religious beliefs, we've been able to remain really good friends. And, I've had recently, which I think is interesting, I've had a bunch of people on my Facebook page give me a hard time because I posted publicly my religious beliefs. And I took a lot of heat for that, which is fine. That's, I can defend myself. But what I thought was interesting is over the last few weeks, I've had basically some polls on my website asking different questions. Now, these certain individuals, including a few others, have gone out of their way to try to skew the votes. This week, I decided to put a poll, which is totally different than what I would do. And I said, go out to the poll and vote. Do you think, do you believe in God? I had 2 votes, 1 no and 1 maybe.
Really?
So I find it interesting that I had over 500 votes. Are aliens working with our government? Do you believe in aliens? I've had over 500 votes, but yet all these people gave me a hard time about religion. I put out there for my poll, do you believe in God? And I only get 2 votes. Can you imagine that?
That sounds kind of bizarre and contradictory, but I've always had a pretty strong set of religious beliefs, but this was kind of a really fascinating study, and it's the most documented form of the paranormal, if you will. It's I heard a couple news clips on the intro, and oh man, I mean, we're talking millions of witnesses, physical evidence, photos. I mean, it makes ghost hunting look like something very amateurish by comparison.
Well, let's get into your story for a second, though, because, you shared with this, what happened to you when you were at one of these churches. And go into that story for my listeners.
Okay, now, as far as the
roses.
Yes. Well, what it was I was, in 2008, I was in upstate New York. It's kind of my favorite little place, and I was looking for real estate. I was shopping. I flew up there from Fort Worth, and I had it organized that I was going to fly back from Albany to Fort Worth on a Thursday, and I took that Wednesday to play tourist in the Mohawk Valley. It's right near the Adirondack State Park, real pretty area. And what happened was I just stumbled across Our Lady of Martyrs Shrine in Auriesville, New York. It's about 40 miles west of Albany. And I just converted to Catholicism about 2 years previously to that. So I figured, I'll check this out. And, wow. I didn't really anticipate what was going to happen. I understand that, Tina, this is about a 40, 50-acre campus. It's about maybe a quarter to a third of a mile up, so it's kind of breezy. It's in the foothills of the Adirondacks. It's really pretty nice, like a plateau kind of setup. And it's got 2 chapels on it and some other things on the grounds. But there's only about 3 people milling about, other than a workman or 2, when I was there. And what happened is I started smelling an overpowering smell of roses. I mean, just grip you by the throat smell of roses. And this was September, and they don't really have any, it was all just pines and maples. It wasn't anything that, it wasn't really a botanical gardens or anything. And the only roses were actually perhaps 20 acres away, and that just a handful at that, around a statue of Mary. So, I have bad allergies from living in Texas. It's a really rough place for allergies. Now, in other words, I was only there in New York a couple of days, and yes, you feel better than you would in Texas, but not. It takes about 2 or 3 weeks to recover your senses. Anyway. It was bizarre that I was smelling something so strongly, is what I'm saying. And this went on and on and on. And finally, I stopped at the museum up there and on the grounds, and I asked the lady what was up with this, because, like I said, I only saw those familiar trees. And I might mention I'm in the landscape business, so wholesale trees and what have you, and even though I'm not a plant or flower expert, I know what's fragrant and what's not, and this was not. Normally fragrant. And she was shocked. She acted shocked when I asked her, and she said, you smelled it also? You smelled it too? And I said, yeah. And what happened is that every 6 months, 12 months, somebody comes in and experiences this phenomenon. It's called the odor of sanctity, and it's frequent experience around Marian sites and in churches, and very much connected with Marian apparitions. At any rate, I knew I was really exposed to something dramatic. I mean, like I say, Tina, this went on and on and on. If I was in it right now, if I went tomorrow to a wholesale nursery and went in one of their greenhouses, I would not smell anything that strong. And
you're not the only. I mean, there have been a few other people that have experienced the same thing.
Thousands,
right?
Thousands,
right.
I mean,
so how did that change you? How did that change you? Like, I mean, was that the catalyst that got you to start writing your book?
Yes, it was. I already had a pre-existing interest in Marian apparitions, but I knew I experienced something that was not just paranormal, but divine in nature. And you've met me before. I'm kind of just a hard case, old Yankee salesman. I'm not, I'm not, someone that dwells on these issues a lot. I mean, yes, I'm religious, but I mean, I'm not, I don't get shaken by stuff very much. And this shook me. I mean, I actually sat down like I'd been blackjacked up there. I mean, this was, whoa. And it was really an excellent experience. And it caused me to investigate the Order of Sanctity. And once again, it just was all intertwined with Marian apparitions. Not always. I mean, not all 100%, but many times. And that led me to write the book, yeah. And the more I looked into it, the more I realized how well documented it was. This wasn't like some wispy kind of deal. This was right on.
How many of the places, because you have a lot of different places in your book, how many of those places, if any, have you visited?
Well, see, I haven't visited, but that shrine, I haven't personally visited very many, no. Okay. One of the things, and this is involved with the paranormal as well, yes, I would like to go to Fatima and some others, but I haven't done it. But there's so much credible testimony out there, and physical evidence too, that the one I will go to is in Mexico City, the Basilica of Guadalupe, where you're probably familiar with a lot of Mexican Americans have the symbol of Our Lady of Guadalupe, that image of her where she's wearing a robe and what have you, right, on the back of their trucks. It's just something you frequently see. And that same depiction is actually on a tilma. That's Tilma. It's a cactus husk garment. And that's in the Basilica of Guadalupe in Mexico City. It's been there for 500 years, still in pristine condition, which is a miracle itself, without any exaggeration, a real miracle just existing.
Now, would you say that's probably the most famous case, or is it Fatima? I mean, which case would you define as the most pronounced?
Fatima probably has been popularized as the most famous, but one of the reasons I like the one in Guadalupe is that there's physical evidence. Because this cactus husk garment, you can think about a cactus husk, how fragile it would be. And, right, I've said before that if, you put a cactus husk in a shoebox and put it on your, in your closet or something, in 20 years it'll be dust.
Right.
In normal cases. And this thing, like I say, it's on display. It's under glass now, but that was only been the last 150 years. And the color is good. And what happened was, this occurred in, right about 1507, if I remember correctly. 1531. The Virgin Mary appeared to Juan Diego. He was an Indian convert to Catholicism, and this was at the site of the current city of Mexico City. And at any rate, what happened was she asked him to go ask the local Catholic bishop to build a chapel on this hill, and then Juan Diego tried to accommodate her request. And, the bishop basically, kind of patted him on the head. Well, okay, buddy, you can bring me back some proof that you saw the Virgin Mary and we'll talk. In other words, it's just a wacko. And he told her this, and she, he was wearing this kind of like a cloak kind of garment, and she gave him some roses to take back to the bishop. And there's also a little twist to that, because this was December in Mexico City. It's a high elevation place. It was pretty cold,
right?
And there certainly weren't any roses growing. And there's another little weird twist to it, Tina, that's interesting. But these were Castilian roses, and the bishop happened to be from that section of Spain, Castile, Spain. And so when he saw those, he knew they weren't, you couldn't even obtain them. By the time you come over in a ship from Spain, they'd be wilted and what have you. So when he saw that, he was sold. He knew that this guy was on a level. And then when Diego opened up the cloak, this image that's on display in Mexico City was visible, and it was an image of the Virgin Mary on the back of this guy's cloak. Now, it gets more interesting than that. This garment has been on display and available for investigation for many years. The Shroud of Turin,
right,
displayed down then.
Right, which is another famous case as well. Yeah.
But this has been examined much more extensively because it's close to the United States and all that. And I know people from Sandia Labs have taken specimens from the garment. Get this, there's no pigment, there's no tracing, there's no way we can, in modern day, replicate that image.
Wow. This
is an honest-to-God, 24-karat, miraculous garment. And that isn't all the evidence, but this is the most impelling. And like I say, it's been exposed to, of course, humidity, bombing attempt, heat. Of course, Mexico gets hot and all that. And all these issues for all these years, it's still in great shape. Now, that, like I say, that's a miracle in and of itself.
Well, you have to understand too that the Catholic Church is very protective of their belief system. So the fact that there have been so many of these supposed incidences, but they've only picked I think it was 12, and they really do their own investigation, and they are thorough. I mean, so for them to say, we really think these 12, that means there's something to them, because they don't want anything that's not associated with truth associated with the church. They're
exactly, because it would undermine people's faith. If they backed a bad horse, they'd say, oh, well, it's all baloney, but it's not.
Right.
And once something like, of course, I didn't see an actual image of Mary, but it was, pretty close. And when something like this happens, it takes all the funny ha-ha out of it. Just like if you see a UFO or you see a ghost, you actually experience something that's an untoward paranormal type experience, you know the joke is gone.
Right.
And this is magnified 100 times because you're dealing with the divine and all that. And like I say, it's really pretty remarkable and pretty wonderful. But anyone that wants to can go to Basilica of Guadalupe in Mexico City, see this, and you can see representations of it anytime on the internet.
Right. Well, when we come back, Kevin, because we're going to be up to our hard break coming up here, I want to get your take on a couple things. You've been a paranormal investigator. You have your own show, and what I'm interested in is, what do you think about when you talk about Guadalupe? Is there a tie-in possibly with UFOs? There have been a lot of UFO reports in that area. So I always try to come from the opposite end, try to keep things open and say, is there a possibility that what they saw was not the Marian apparition, but really another being just using a holographic display to ease what people would think, because if they showed up as a gray, they'd freak out. But if they could do a screen image of something that they could respond to, could that be a possibility? I'm just curious about that. So I really don't think so. I want you to think about that for a second, and we're going to talk more.
I know, I could ask that before.
We're going to talk more here with Kevin in just a second. when I bring him back, we're going to ask about some of his guests he's had on the show, more about his book, Marian Apparitions Are Real. So when we come back, more with Kevin Cook. I am your host, Tina Marie, and you are listening to Restricted Airspace, your worldwide connection to the paranormal. If you have a question or comment for Kevin, please call in our hotline at 702-257-KDWN. That's 702-257-5396. Again, 702-257-5396. Or head on over to restrictedairspace.radio.com, click the green icon button next to On Air, and join the live chat. You know, a little something different tonight for our bumper music. A lot of people, I pick all kinds of strange music. A little something different tonight for our bumper music. So, a little Owl City, Galaxies, Take Us to Bridge.
Fight back the flight deck, bring on the breakneck, cue the solar eclipse, summit the sunset, dovetail the dragnet, and blow your backbone to bits. Dear God, I was terribly lost when the galaxies crossed and the sun went dark. But dear God, you're the only North Star I would follow this far.
We will return to Restricted Airspace with Tina Marie after this.
Alien Deceptions, a suspenseful sci-fi romance thriller by Tina Marie, featuring the tantalizing Erica Jones and the mysterious Russell Hamilton. An out-of-this-world book of fiction based on years of document facts and files the government does not want you to know about, at least not yet. Alien Deceptions by Tina Marie. Available now at Amazon.com or get a signed copy at TinaMarieEntertainment.com. Get your copy now.
Now, back into Restricted Airspace with Tina Marie.
Hi, this is George Tyler, wishing everybody happy Thanksgiving out there. Hope you all had a great time. In any case, I'm the regional director for the Mutual UFO Network, usually called MUFON, and we get some 350 UFOs reported each week. In California, we had reports on November 18th, about 9:30 p.m. A witness looked out his window and noticed some burning lights coming from the south. He went outside to take a look, and multiple lights flew north towards his house, and actually flew over his house and then dissipated. Another witness said that 3 orbs were over Beale Air Force Base, heading south on Route 70. In any case, these could have been Chinese lanterns, which are, put up for weddings and things. But we do get numerous reports from California and also in Arizona. A couple were driving near Dateland on Highway 8 from San Diego to Phoenix on November 25th when they spotted the lights in a very dark, empty sky. Their son, who was in the back seat, also saw it when it appeared. He first thought it may be a tower, but what they quickly realized was much too high, and there was no tower anywhere in the area. The lights were well above the nearby mountains, flew back and forth, and eventually disappeared. On November 17th, a dark, silent, oval craft was seen over Tempe. 2 friends were up late listening to some music at about 3 a.m. when one went outside to get some air and saw a reddish object slowly traveling west at about 10,000 feet, which looked like an airplane at first, but he realized it didn't have the proper navigation lights, and it was illuminated really only by the full moon reflecting off of it. As it started to move in a southwesterly direction, he noticed the craft became completely dark and was a dark oval silhouette against the white clouds. In any case, that's our reports for this week, and this is only a few of the sightings that we get in. If you want to look at more information, you can go to MUFON.com or to my site, theNationalReportingCenter.com. thanks to people like yourself looking in, we're getting some 2 million hits a month. That's all for this week. Have a good time shopping over the next few weeks. We'll see you again next week.
Not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring, he's roaring like a lion. He's roaring, he's roaring. Let heaven roar and fire fall.
Welcome back to Restricted Airspace. I am Tina Marie, your guide through the underground tunnels of darkness tonight. That was God's Not Dead by the Newsboys. Links to all songs this week are featured on my website at restrictedairspace.radio.com. Follow the Amazon links and get your copy today. Do you have a CD or song you might want featured on the show? Maybe a conference or event you want highlighted? Have a new book that deals with UFO, ghosts, conspiracies, or the paranormal? Would you like to be a guest on this program? Then drop me an email at tinamarie@restrictedairspace.radio.com. That's tinamarie @restrictedairspace.radio.com. Now, please welcome back author, radio personality, and of all things, just my really good friend Kevin Cook. Kevin, what do you think? Kevin, is God dead?
No, he's not dead. But one thing I could say to people, and this is biblical, is that God draws the people to him he wants. It says that in there.
You know I'm going to get a bunch of emails on my Facebook page for saying that now.
Well, what I'm saying is, yes, I believe he's alive, but he draws those to him that he wants, and that is what the Bible says. And a lot of people in this connection of UFOs and these Marian apparitions are constantly trying to say, it's really a UFO-related phenomenon and stuff, but not everything is UFO-oriented. UFOs
yes, it is. You know it is. It is, too.
Well, yeah, but no, it's not. And what I'm saying is there's so much of a rich bunch of stuff connected with this, like prophecies. We'll talk about, the Fatima prophecies, and like I just mentioned in the previous segment, that shroud of, the tilma from Juan Diego that was, it wasn't an alien artifact. It was indigenous materials, it was a corn husk garment. But I'm saying that this has physical evidence, photos, witness testimony, all the things that you could get a court decision on. And it's a lot more sophisticated than, some areas of the paranormal.
Now, I want to go back to, I want to touch on Fatima real quick, because,
all right.
That was an interesting case. You have documented facts. What I find interesting is the nun that wrote it, who was one of the visitations,
Sister
Lucia, yeah. She actually wrote to the Vatican on behalf of the Vatican. She wrote 3 different letters. Now, what's interesting is the first 2 have come to premonition. Now, the third one is still subject to debate.
Right.
Go into those briefly and kind of what detailed those, because I find that this story pretty interesting.
Well, Sister Lucia was, of the 3 children, was the one that actually had the conversation back and forth with the Virgin Mary, and certain interesting prophecies were given to her, I guess more or less as a proof, like I'm saying, a proof of things, that this is a legit event. For example, the Virgin Mary spoke of Russia having, through its errors, going to cause a lot of problems in the world. And the setting was 1917 Portugal, and these were peasant children, backwater place. They might have heard, of course, of World War I because there were Portuguese troops involved, but still, it was kind of a, we're talking about 10-year-old children here. 12 years old in Lucia's case, but they had no knowledge of Russia and its errors. I mean, they might not even be able to put Russia on the map. I mean, certainly not geopolitical things. And of course, in 1917 was the rise of communism in Russia and so forth. And she also spoke of a greater war coming after that, of course, referring to World War II. And a light would be seen in the sky, which would foretell the events, more or less the kickoff for World War II. And Hitler at Berchtesgaden, his retreat, he actually saw this in 1938. It was a tremendous light in the sky that was unprecedented.
The Aurora Borealis.
Yes, but to an unprecedented extent.
Right.
And he was fixated on this because he knew this was a kickoff to him, and now it can begin or whatever. And so all these things the Virgin Mary predicted to these children that barely could write their name, and this was unnatural knowledge, if you will. And so, I mean, all these things are corroborative evidence of the validity of these things, and I don't think any three-toed alien is going to have this kind of knowledge, And that's why I really was very impressed with it as a study, yes.
Well, you know what I found interesting is because she wrote her third letter, and the strict orders were that it could not be opened until 1960 or until she passed away. Yet at 1960, the Vatican still waited for years before they released this information.
They did. It wasn't until much later when John Paul II came up with a kind of a wishy-washy reference to that the letter was relative to the assassination attempt of him in the 80s. And what I'm saying, this is 2000, I think. It's written in the book, but it's way later. And you're right, for years they kind of deferred saying anything. And there's a group that's called Fatimists, because they're interested in the study of the Third Secret. Mm-hmm. And they were meeting in Rome in 2010. And one of the members was a U.S. attorney. Of course, he's used to investigations and what have you. And he said there's no way that the official story holds water. I mean...
well, yeah, but you have the 3 letters. The first 2 that were released, she signed. Right. The third one that was released does not have her signature on it. And I think a lot of people, that's what got them. They're like, well, if this is the original letter, if this is what she wrote... How come there is no signature on this one? And they could not, the Vatican
Well, there's that, and then there was a witness at the time that said there was more to it, and there was something left...
intentionally
left out. Mm-hmm. The general overall drift of it is that it's been alleged, and one of the insights that maybe could explain this is there was some material that the Virgin Mary gave to Sister Lucia that was not, say, critical of the church, say, if you will. Mm-hmm. And the way the Vatican is, they wouldn't want anything like that to get out. Or perhaps it could have been apocalyptic about some bad future events and didn't want to have people worried or something because they are paternalistic and would not want to have everybody, running around in terror or something.
Right.
And for one of those two potential explanations could be what they were, not forthcoming with the information. I don't think they have been yet, if you want, in clarity, because I don't think that the assassination attempt in the 80s was a big deal, where he was shot by a Turkish guy. I mean, that wasn't enough to cause all this secrecy and nonsense.
And when you get into penning stuff like this, I mean, even with Notre Dame and you go back to Edgar Casey, there's a lot of gray area, a lot of interpretation that's free-willed into these. So it's not like, on this date at this time, this is going to happen. So people can read into kind of whatever they want to hear and kind of skew the events to whatever fits their needs.
Yeah, but some of the predictions I've made were pretty clear-cut events. I mean, all of Europe is going to experience such an unprecedented aurora borealis, lights in the sky, that foretell a much greater war than World War II. That's pretty specific.
Right, but again, with that, she didn't particularly say that it was going to be the aurora borealis. She just said it was going to be lights in the sky.
Well, big light in the sky, which is okay. I don't, whatever that happened to be it. But I mean, she didn't say, on Fifth and Vine, you'll see so. But I mean, you have to be kind of,
No, I mean, I agree. There is some, definitely a lot of validity that goes into there. Now, I want to touch on with you because you have a very great paranormal show, conspiracy show that you have on Tuesday night on Inception Radio. And
yes, the Kevin Cook Show. It's on 8 p.m. Central, and it's on the internet, www.kevincookshow.com. But also, we're on Sunday nights, 4 to 6 now, in Chicago on 13:30 a.m.
Congratulations! Awesome.
So, yeah.
So let me ask you this, because you've been doing this for a while now, and you wrote the book. It's spiritual in nature. My question is to you: how do you handle and deal with people who are extremely on the religious end, or people who are on the extreme UFO end? And you seem to balance the fact that you can have your religion, but at the same time, there's you understand that there's something going on in the paranormal, whether it's ghosts or whether it's UFOs.
Well, yes, and see what it is, Tina. This has always kind of vexed me. Is that look, what it is even Jesus spoke of ghosts in the Bible. And, the witch of Endor in the Old Testament raised the ghost of Samuel the prophet and all this stuff. And what I'm saying is a lot of religious people have too limited a view of what's out there. There's all kinds of stuff out there. In experimental physics, Michio Kaku is perhaps the theoretical physicist of choice these days, leading man in that field. He's spoken of all kinds of different dimensions and this and that and the other. And what I'm saying is a lot of religious people are like, they're too closed-minded to what's out there. Jesus didn't say everything was simple. He said that in my Father's house are many mansions, and and so forth and so on, which to me implies, like it would just logically, complexity. And like I say, I have problems with the UFO people, like everything's a UFO, and the UFOs are all over this phenomenon, which they're not. But what I'm saying is, there's a lot out there. So it doesn't, to be religious and still allow for this, that we only know just a little bit. I remember when I was a kid, we had a yacht and we were boating in the Gulf of Mexico, and we landed in Mexico for a few minutes. Okay, well, yes, I was in Mexico, but I hardly knew what was comprised in Mexico. I landed on a sand spit for 10 minutes, and that was Mexico. But, I mean, what I'm saying is that's how much knowledge we have of what's out there. I think God has revealed himself to us. These Marian apparitions are another method that he has. But we don't know the nuts and bolts of the alien thing, the ghost thing, the dimensionality. But it's nothing to be afraid of. It's just that people have to have an either-or deal.
Right. They can't have an open mind.
Right. And see, also, I get this also with conventional Christians. Of course, I'm a Roman Catholic, but what I'm saying is they're bugged about the Virgin Mary, like, that's giving credit to somebody else other than God. Well, look, God had angels, all that. If she's a missionary figure of God, so what's wrong with that? See, Protestants bug me too, because the Bible in Luke describes, Mary for all times will be considered blessed, and they go right past that like you're talking Indonesian or something,
well,
right?
You know what I find interesting is that Marian is talked about more in the Quran than she is in the Bible.
Well, she is, and they revere her, but what I'm saying is, just one facet here, though, Tina, is that, of course, I converted to the Catholic Church from, Anglicanism, but what I'm saying is, they don't know their own Bible, and they'll criticize me about, you're worshiping Mary instead of God. Well, now, look, if someone's called blessed for all eternity, they have to have a little emphasis on their background, right, or their place in things. So, what I'm saying is people are, in both the pro and the con, are very closed-minded and, frankly, not very bright.
Well, and I have to agree with you on that, you have both parts of the spectrum. I mean, you have people, and I've met them, who are UFO believers, who believe every light in the sky. I go, it's an airplane? And they go, no, it's not. It's cloaked as a UFO. And you just have to sit there and go, okay, you're one of those. And then you have the same thing when it comes to religious-based. When you tell people you believe in UFOs, they automatically look at you differently. When I tell people I'm spiritual but not based on the definitions that we have on this earth. That's not what I was shown from my experience, my abduction experiences. So when you tell people that, they immediately just get very defensive about their religion. I'm like, listen, I'm not going to tear apart your religion. You have every right to believe what you believe in. I have every right to believe what I want to believe in. But if you're going to come to the table and have a discussion about this, don't come empty-handed, because I grew up Catholic. Okay, I was constantly being told to be quiet in church because I kept asking questions. And I think that's what happens is you have such opposite ends of the spectrum that, there are people who are in the middle that say, you know what, I'm not saying yes, I'm not saying no to either part. I'm just saying, let's keep an open mind here, because there's a lot that we don't know about. I mean, 100 years ago, we wouldn't even have thought of the idea of flying a plane, yet here we are. 50 years ago, the idea of having a cell phone.
Just going back to that one thing that Jesus said, if he's talking about many mansions, he's talking about many formats, dimensions, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Settings that they're not familiar with.
Right.
So that implies complexity, and also logic implies complexity. I had these guys on the show this past week that were complete extremists, and they couldn't believe there was any other form of life, and all these 4 quadrillion celestial bodies they've isolated just to this point.
Right.
and they were saying, "Oh, man's it." And I was saying, "Well, how can you say that? Why would you say that?"
I
mean, in other words, God got to be put in a little filing cabinet for you? I mean, in other words, it doesn't work that way. And one of the things that's true about this material and me is, I feel very thankful to have been exposed to these things. And a lot of other smaller things that we don't really have time to get into. But, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is...
researched. I mean, I read your book. It is extremely well researched. I mean, it makes you think. It makes you go out and do a little research and say, okay, and that's what I've done. And that's why I remained friends with you for so long, because I honestly felt that I'm like, okay, I read the book. I remember when we had you on the show, and I was like, oh, one of these. And then I read the book and I talked to you, and I'm like, here's somebody who's extremely knowledgeable, somebody who did the research, but at the same time keeps his mind open that there is other possibilities. And I've always respected you for that. So thank you.
Well, I mean, there are just, these things do exist, but what it is, people are gutless. And what it is, anything that rocks their boat, they don't have the strength of their convictions, if you will, and the extreme religionist types were afraid of there being aliens because it might rock their picture of things. Or I'm not like that. I don't figure God has to be put in a filing cabinet and just taken out and looked at and set back in there. He's God. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on out here. It doesn't bother me.
Right.
But it's really an impressive phenomenon. It really is, Tina. And like I say, I've one of the guys, Tim Barth, he's a psychology professor, actually head of the department at TCU, Texas Christian University, big school here in Fort Worth. And he's a long-term paranormal investigator, et cetera, very nationally known. And TCU's kind of a snooty school, so it's kind of like right below Harvard or Yale, kind of, in prestige. But what I'm saying is, of all the ghostly investigations and endless shows and all this, all their material, he agrees, is pale in comparison to this material.
Right.
I mean, it's like a jet versus a tricycle compared to the volume of it, the dimensions of it, the complexities of it. It's really very impressive.
Well, I mean, you do have this, but, what I've always said is when you go back to even the Catholic faith and you look at some of even the pictures that were documented from the time, you granted the UFO field to what people say is kind of an infancy stage, if you want to say that. But you go back to some of the pictures that were done from that time, and there's pictures of UFOs in those. Why would they draw
there were. There's a picture that's, oh golly, it's been in a museum in Italy since 1500s.
The Virgin Mary.
The Virgin Mary's in the foreground and the background's a UFO, and this is something that's been in constant custody of the museum. Nobody's penning it in or something, and there weren't any movies going on at the time. But, see, even in Genesis, it mentions watchers, specifically speaking of them in terms of being non-human entities, and some said they're demons, but they don't know that. They're talking watch.
But even in chapter, I think it's chapter 4 or chapter 6 of Genesis, it talks about beings coming down from out of space, from another world that helped build this planet. So when you look, that's why I've always said that when people look at religion, don't come and argue something that you don't take bits and pieces of the Bible that suit your need. Look into it, read it. I've read it twice.
And Well, actually, the best and easiest place is go to kevincookShow.com, and there's a couple tabs that take you directly to Amazon or Barnes & Noble right there. That's the best way.
Okay.
KevinCookShow.com, and, might listen to the show on the Internet on Tuesdays or...
Tuesdays, and it's Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, correct?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Okay, so who do you got coming up this week on your show?
Well, this week I've got an exorcist, Father Michael Sherbert. He's a Eastern Orthodox priest friend of mine, and they're
going to finally exorcise you on radio, huh?
No, I've had an exorcism.
Okay.
But he's going to talk about actually, Tina, there's only about a dozen.
Wow.
Catholic exorcisms.
Right, they don't do that much anymore. The church has kind of got away from that. So.
No, they're going back to it in that big way.
Really?
But what it is, they got behind in training of exorcists.
All right, well, Kevin, we're up at a hard break at the top there. I want to thank you for stopping down here at the radio station here, tuning in. It's 2 o'clock in the morning your time, so appreciate it. So I'm going to let everybody know if you want to talk to Kevin Cook, listen to his show on Tuesday nights, Inception Radio, or go to kevincookshow.com. Go ahead and listen to his show. Don't forget your tickets now for the Awakening Conference next year in Las Vegas, March 28th through the 30th, and the Paranorth, September 26th through the 28th. I'll be speaking at both of them. Special thanks to the staff here at KDWN. I love the fact that they let me hijack their 50,000 watts every single week. But the most important thing that I want to thank is just my listeners. A big thanks for making this show one of the most talked about shows out here in Las Vegas and around the world. I get emails, hundreds of emails every week, and I'm responding to as many as I can, so thank you so much. Tune in next Friday night as my special guest will be Tracy Austin, paranormal investigator, author of Haunted Las Vegas and Alien Encounters in the Western United States, as well as a TV host for the hit show Let's Talk Paranormal. This is Restricted Airspace. I am your host, Tina Marie, and as always, remember, question everything, trust no one. Thank you, Kevin Cook, for being on. Good night, everybody.
If there's something you want to talk about, something you want to know, something you are afraid to ask, then this is the show for you. Follow us every Friday night at midnight as we enter Restricted Airspace with Tina Marie. For more information or to contact us, go to restrictedairspace.radio.com. Restricted Airspace.